We have major breaking news pertaining to Project Veritas and James O'Keefe. He has been placed on paid leave over some kind of controversy involving the firing of a chief financial officer. I have a Twitter thread from one individual breaking down what happened, and I can say right now that I have the letter drafted by the employees making complaints about James O'Keefe. And I'm with James O'Keefe on this one. Look, I don't know a whole lot about the internal workings of Project Veritas. I just know that James O'Keefe is Project Veritas. So what we're hearing is that there's some disgruntled employees who have issued their complaints about James O'Keefe, and that in some instance, apparently he tried to fire an individual or more, which resulted in the board taking the action of removing James O'Keefe. All this at a time when infighting and drama among the anti-establishment and the culture war right seems to be reaching critical mass. So it is what it is. I can't tell you why it's happening. It's happening everywhere. And especially considering Project Veritas recently just came out with one of its biggest stories ever, exposing an executive from Pfizer talking about what people would colloquially describe as gain-of-function research. This comes off as highly suspect. Why now, at Project Veritas's biggest moment? And they've had many big moments, don't get me wrong. The Amy Rohrbach tapes, where they exposed how ABC News covered up the Epstein interview. Why right now is this all happening? It seems tactless. If Project Veritas had a problem, if the board members had a problem, why would they not simply say, guys, we're going to wait? Maybe they can't. I don't know. Well, let me know what you think. I'm sure there are a lot of people who have their concerns or issues with me, because I've certainly been in a mood, as it were. But I think it's time we have a serious conversation about the bifurcation and the fracturing and the collapse in the unity that we've seen in the culture war right, as it would be described. And we have to address it. We have to absolutely address it. Look, man, it's one thing when you feel personally slighted or you're upset about the way an organization is operating. But let me just stress right now, between the Daily Wire and Steven Crowder, between me and the Quartering and anyone else involved in that, between Project Veritas and James O'Keefe, we can't have this. We absolutely cannot. We can have our differences, we can have our disagreements, but if this persists at this level, especially after I just covered a story at 1 p.m. about 2 Republicans now being killed, this will be the end of whatever it is we are all trying to accomplish. The story of Project Veritas, I've been hearing murmurs about from sources over the past couple of days and not gotten any strong confirmation. But I do now have the unpublished letter, as of the time of recording of this video, unpublished. I don't know, maybe someone will get it out before I publish this video. But at the time, the document explaining why people are upset with James O'Keefe. And perhaps, I don't know. People may think it's bad to show because it's people posting very critical things about James O'Keefe. But I don't believe much of this. And it seems like, I don't know, man, something's happening that is gutting our efforts to push back on the woke cult. And maybe it is a byproduct of the fact that we're not a cult, that we don't all agree, that we don't all get along. Well, we may not. We may not agree and we may not get along, but this is reaching a point of serious concern. And having seen that story earlier about 2 Republicans being shot and killed, maybe not political, seeing James O'Keefe ousted from Veritas at their peak moment, I think it's time we consider minimizing our emotional responses to the drama between each other and maximizing our emotional responses and logical responses to the greater fight at hand. That is to say that if this drama continues between various networks, it will result in our failure. I can only put it that way. So while certainly I have my personal feelings, I'm going to start this video out by saying this. To all the people who are upset with me, especially over the video that I put out the other day, you know what? I'm going to apologize. Absolutely. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. Obviously, we have our differences, and obviously I feel a certain way. But I don't want to fight with you. Not right now. Not after reading these stories about these murders, not after seeing what's going on with Project Veritas, and not after Project Veritas did something so important. So to all of you who are upset, I do apologize because it was stupid. We can't do this. It was stupid considering what's going on with the Daily Wire and Steven Crowder. And I think you guys need to figure out how to work that one out as well. Because this one freaked me out. I got to be careful about what I say to protect sources. I'm speaking with journalists based out of New York who, and you've got many leftists who are digging into this story. And, you know, it doesn't feel right and something feels wrong. And it feels like this may be the biggest threat to our efforts to protect American values, to protect what we believe in this country. So we can't have it. So again, I'm not that kind of guy. You know, I'm kind of an arrogant narcissist, whatever you want to call me. But I'm going to start this out by saying, Jeremy Hambly, we shouldn't fight. I have very little concerns about the drama stuff. We got to talk about this. This is the big news. We have to come together where we agree. And obviously, me and anybody else who's upset, outside of Jeremy or anyone else, we're not going to grant a lot of things. But we got to come together and make sure that this man. Look, I believe in Project Veritas, but I don't know what's going on. There's one thing that gives me hope in everything we're fighting for and what we're standing up for as it pertains to liberty, individualism, you know, all of these things, honesty, integrity. And it was knowing that there is an upstart ragtag group of individuals pushing back. That Project Veritas, one of the last journalistic organizations in this country with true integrity, and that's what we're trying to build. Okay? So for that, and that being said, I'm done with the drama. I apologize to everybody. Let's not fight. If you want to be mad at me, please continue to do so. But I'm not going to do it. Not right now. Today was crazy. Look, I got this letter from an internal document released to me by a source, and I started reading it, and I thought to myself, we got to get serious. I mean, that Pfizer expose was important. The work that the Daily Wire does is important. The work that Steven Crowder does is also important, and we should not be wasting our time and energy fighting amongst ourselves. That's just my position. And that's the stance I'm going to be taking moving forward. So I'm done with any kind of internal conflicts, and I'm going to keep my focus where it matters. What is happening with the establishment, this includes Democrats and Republicans, what's going on with war, conflict, and crisis. And I will stress again, my apologies to anybody who is upset with how things have gone here. I can only speak for myself, but I'm not going to waste time fighting with you when we shouldn't be. I hope you agree, and you don't have to. Let's read this news, and before we get started, become a member at timcast.com if you like the work that we do. Not everybody does. That's fine. Click the Join Us button. Last night, we spoke with several members of Congress, and I think it was a particularly good and enlightening show, and it was an honor and a privilege, and that's what we got to focus on. A special shout out to Matt Gaetz. Matt, I think you're an inspiration. I have tremendous respect for you. He pushed back on McCarthy. He stood up for what he believed in, and now he's standing with him, saying he's giving him an A rating. And I can respect that. I can respect that these individuals are standing up for what they believe in, pushing back on what they view as what is wrong, but standing together when they realize that's what has to be done. So let's talk about Project Veritas. First, let me show you the story here from the New York Magazine. James O'Keefe is on paid leave from Project Veritas. Take it with a grain of salt. I have heard this from multiple sources from various news organizations. We're talking about New York, okay? So you need to understand what that probably means. They say James O'Keefe, the founder and chairman of Project Veritas, has taken a paid leave from the conservative nonprofit media organization as its board considers whether to remove him from his leadership position, according to current and former employees of the organization. An internal message sent to Project Veritas employees by the organization's executive director, Daniel Strack, said that O'Keefe would be taking a few weeks of well-deserved paid time off. An image of the message was shared by a source familiar with the organization's internal operations, and its authenticity was confirmed by a current employee. When reached for comment on his personal cell phone, O'Keefe said nothing in response and didn't respond to follow-up calls and text messages. I can also add, I've reached out to James O'Keefe and received nothing, no response. Presumably he's under contract not to speak at this time, but he has not responded to me, and so it is what it is. Through a Project Veritas spokesman, Strack later released a statement on behalf of the organization. He says, like all newsrooms at this stage, the Project Veritas board of directors and management are constantly evaluating what the best path forward is for the organization. The statement read in part, it did not directly address questions about O'Keefe's employment status. There are 65 plus employees at Project Veritas dedicated to continuing the mission to expose corruption, dishonesty, waste, fraud, and other misconduct in both public and private institutions, the statement read. To our supporters, we hear you, we care about you, and we will never give up. O'Keefe is his organization's guiding ideological force and on-screen face. But his status as its day-to-day manager has become uncertain amid reports of internal turmoil, lawsuits from former employees, leaks about its internal workings, and a federal investigation into its conduct in purchasing a diary stolen from Ashley Biden. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm now going to show you a letter that reveals the individuals who have sought to oust James O'Keefe from Project Veritas. I stand with James O'Keefe. I believe in James O'Keefe. I know James O'Keefe. I've spoken at an event recently when we were in, where were we just recently? Jeez, I can't even remember where we were. We spoke at a Project Veritas event, and this was in Phoenix, Arizona. That's where we were, at TP USA. James O'Keefe is Project Veritas. And I want to give a shout out. The FBI searches James O'Keefe's home in Ashley Biden diary theft inquiry. He's been the leader. He's been its ideological guiding force, as even leftist news publications say. And there's no Project Veritas without him. But that's not what these employees believe. Now, I certainly respect the hard work of everybody at Project Veritas, but the response that they've given in these letters is that, well, I'll put it this way. I want to make sure you understand my perspective on this letter that I'm now going to release, and we will be publishing on timcast.com so you can read. These individuals, I believe, are exaggerating their claims against James O'Keefe. And that's just my personal perspective based on what I've seen of many of these employees and what I've seen of James O'Keefe. I have interacted with James in his office. I've seen how he talks and works with employees. I have seen him and heard of his work through other people. The characterization that I see from these employees who are upset with James O'Keefe seems to me to be an inversion that I do not take what they say. Look, I'll put it this way. I trust James more than I trust them, and I've not even heard from James. But it seems that many of these people don't like working for him and thus are leaking to New York Mag, to leftist New York publications that would seek to smear and dismantle Project Veritas, and thus I certainly don't trust them. But when I hear these absurd stories, one of them is James stole a sandwich from a pregnant woman. You expect me to believe this stuff? I don't know. I can only tell you this. To get a little personal, I just find it so strange that all of a sudden, in the past couple of weeks, within every facet of the anti-establishment movement, there has been conflict and crisis and infighting. How that happens, I just don't know. And so I made the joke on Twitter that it's coordinated. That was a joke. Phase 2 begins. Who believed that? Come on, this is Twitter. I'm always screwing around on Twitter. I won't be engaging in this anymore. So again, I have already said several times I apologize because we can't do this, guys. This letter shouldn't happen. Okay, if you don't want to work for James, you leave. If James really is a bad guy, you leave. But to leak internal communications to New York Mag, etc., this is where I start to question, who is it within this organization, a mole perhaps, that's sowing discord and seeking to take down Project Veritas, especially at a time when they just came out with a major expose against Pfizer. I hope you all consider that. And so again, I'm not going to participate in this. I will not be party to the destruction of the only thing standing in between psychotic international corporate interests and those of us who believe in the values of our country. I'll do the best I can. I'm not perfect. Here's the letter, 11 pages long. To Project Veritas Board of Directors, Project Veritas Action Board of Directors and Executive Management. Note, the opinions and data shared and anecdotes were compiled by 1/3 of the Project Veritas staff representing every department. Not all signed this letter, but all had compelling reason to contribute. Subsignatories have not been the subject of abuse nor witnessed any abuse, but found the corroborated behavior troubling and were willing to sign. That is a very important statement y'all need to understand. That is to say, some people don't even know if these claims are true, but decided to sign it anyway. Wait. Are you kidding? Let me say this. Some signatories have not been the subject of abuse, nor witnessed any abuse. That is right at the top of this letter. There are people who signed this letter seeking to oust James O'Keefe who witnessed nothing and experienced nothing. Who is seeking to destroy this organization? That's my question. The undersigned are troubled and frustrated with James' management style and business acumen. These behaviors and actions are antithetical to our core values, and it came to a head this week. Most recently, the treatment of Barry Hinckley and Tom O'Hara. These two highly respected individuals did what they thought was right for the betterment of the organization and got berated in public on Tuesday and effectively terminated on Thursday. In an image, Barry Hinckley says, "Team, last night I stood up to a bully and was fired. Management, by shaming and bullying, is never acceptable, and it doesn't belong in the workplace. I won't tolerate it personally or on behalf of my coworkers, direct reports. I'm proud to say I stand by my actions. It was an honor to work with you. As they say, be brave, do something." These actions led to the immediate communications between concerned Project Veritas members. Over the past 2 days, we collected additional examples of behavior which crossed the line. The following bulleted items came from individuals who are edited as little as possible to keep the spirit of everyone's individual thoughts. Now, this is my personal bias, but upon reading these stories, I got to say, I don't buy it. You're telling me that people signed this letter without being witness to any abuse nor experiencing any of it. But then we have these anecdotes that are either character attacks that explain no real grievance or outright insane stories. Consider this. The first bullet point. James has become a power-drunk tyrant, and he is exactly who he pontificates on who we should be exposing. That has accused him of nothing other than you're saying you don't like him. Tell me why, or anyone why, James has done something inappropriate. The bullet point should read something like, James yesterday was irate and yelled at an employee over a minor infraction. I find this unbecoming. No, they just say, we attack his character. That explains nothing to me. The next. I'm on the side of holding James accountable for his behavior that has damaged important relationships inside and outside of Project Veritas. A great example is Spencer Meads and Eric Cochran. Both left because they were so abused and overworked. Eric Cochran was asked to do a lie detector, I believe. And James would make derogatory statements about him to the staff because he was unhappy that Eric left. James went as far as to call Spencer a pussy in Vegas, and Spencer heard him say it. Both of these guys were mission-driven and suffered through it. They were raided, and James still called Spencer that name. He never forgave them for making decisions to leave for their own mental well-being. I'm not going to sit here and pretend all of these are fabricated. I'm certain that James O'Keefe, he may be a tough guy to work for. But my point is this. Project Veritas is too important. You know, I might be arrogant enough to where I'm just like, I don't care about this stuff. But I get really worried when I'm like, okay, if these guys are being ripped apart, if James is put on leave over this stuff, man, we're in bigger trouble than just whatever drama, we may be experiencing on YouTube or something. I'm not going to read every single bullet point. There are some that I find completely absurd, noting that he took a sandwich from a pregnant woman. They say at Democracy Partners trial in public, I was yelled at in front of jurors because he was hungry. And then he took the 8-month pregnant woman's sandwich. Is that the employee who got yelled at? Seriously? I find that very strange. Barry, Dan, Tom, and Eric were the subject of bullying. On the leadership meeting with at least 10 people present, no productive outcome resulted that needed a forum of everyone present. After all these bullet points of complaints, they go on and will publish the full document at timcast.com, breaking down the story so you can understand what the complaints are. And then individuals, I suppose, can seek to corroborate them. They say generally these patterns of behavior severely limit our ability to execute the Project Veritas mission. And we feel it's our duty as employees and leaders of Project Veritas that care about its future to have a voice and demand needed change. We ask the board to address the following. Cease bullying and erratic behavior. Cease micromanaging. Cease undermining. Ensure controls are implemented to execute on the above without fear of personal reprisal. This is, my friends, I'll put it this way. It's a coup against James O'Keefe. James O'Keefe is Project Veritas. He is its leader. Because of the structure of Project Veritas, they've been able to oust the man who made it all possible and who leads this mission. I disagree with it. I have a Twitter thread I want to show you. We can see here the undersigned. And this is important. The many people who signed this, I won't read all of their names. You can see them. And again, we'll publish this at timcast.com. You can see who came out and signed a letter against Project Veritas. If you don't want to work for him, don't work for him. But to remove him from Veritas is only to destroy Veritas and the work that they do. But of course, in text messages, we can see many of these people held themselves above him. Everyone is righteously upset because of James. I hope James can realize we're doing this out of love for the mission. This is our moment to make history from the employees that both signed and didn't sign. It's not about sucking. It's about being able to do it without him, because the brand is more powerful than any one individual. There is honestly no Project Veritas without us. This is a coup against James O'Keefe. I have a Twitter thread from Swig. Swig, old Rose Swig on Twitter says, a whistleblower has contacted me about the news that James O'Keefe was put on leave and stripped of all authority at Veritas. This is difficult for me to publish as a staunch supporter of Veritas for years and even a VIP at their events. I can say similarly, I don't know if you consider me a VIP. I guess in Phoenix I was, and I got on stage and I said very good things about them because I think what James O'Keefe does is important. I know the story, history to a certain degree of James O'Keefe. We've had him on the show several times. And look, man, what I see is text messages from employees saying, we are Project Veritas, not James. That is not true. You are all who work at Project Veritas respected, in my opinion, except for this, mind you, because it isn't just James who does this. It's the whistleblowers. It's the journalists who go on the ground. But you have just lopped off your head. You've cut off your nose to spite your face. I don't understand how someone could enter an organization founded and led by an individual and then come to the conclusion that they're the reason it works and then destroy it. I think y'all got to stop fighting, man. I think we got to stop fighting. This stuff scares me. Maybe it comes crashing. Swig says James is a bit of a victim of poor corporate structure, as Project Veritas is two separate organizations, the 501c3, which had very, very few board members, and the majority of the money, and a 501c4, which had significantly more members but less money. According to my source, the situation has allowed two alleged ringleaders of this attempt to push James out to have significant sway over the others, despite their reason to be essentially meritless. Board members and C-suite officers involved in this, according to my sources, are Matt Termond, the ringleader, John Garvey, George Skakel, Joseph Barton, and Steve Alembic, CFO Tom O'Hara, and COO Barry Hinckley. Ringleader, pronouns in bio. How did this person get a job at Project Veritas? Pronouns in bio. Again, I go back to the document in question that outlined their demands. And then we have Project Veritas's ethical values, their core mission statement, and their rules. And that's how the letter ends. No more fake urgency. Quite literally was screaming so wildly and loudly within inches of my face that it indeed happened. Rule 1, you can't spit in an employee's face over a tweet, true story. Yeah, it sounds like he didn't. It sounds like he was yelling at somebody. Inappropriate, perhaps. But I'm worried that the destruction of Project Veritas ain't worth it. They say we are writing this because we value the organization that James has built and what we've become. No one else is doing the work of Project Veritas, and we love it. What we do for our audience, we do incredibly well. However, we can't become even greater until we unleash the full potential of the organization and its people. The only product we have is the material that comes from the people in this organization. If we don't make these changes, we will fail to attract and retain the best people. We have the moral courage to say what needs to be said. Continue down the path we are on, and you will have an army of yes men who wouldn't dare pen this letter. We are resilient. Failure is not an option. Be brave. Do something. There's a list of individuals who signed this letter, as stated previously in the letter, who, some of them, have not been the subject of abuse nor witnessed any abuse, but found the corroborated behavior troubling enough. Is the corroborated behavior emerging from an individual with pronouns in his bio? I wonder. Apparently that may be the case. I don't know where James O'Keefe goes after this, but I know that wherever he does go, that will be the real Project Veritas. Many people believe that this is Pfizer. Considering the work that he just did and the expose they did, they just took out the individual who made it all possible. During Occupy Wall Street, there was a strong movement by individuals to resist any identifiable leaders. And they said, if you do that, the machine will figure out who to smear, defame, and destroy to plaster the besmirchment, whatever you call it, on the entire movement. That was smart of them. You gotta be honest. But the machine eventually figures out how to control these people. Project Veritas, unfortunately, is not immune to these factors. Source, quote, "The board held a 6.5-hour struggle session with James where they subjected him to constant derision and insults at the insistence of Termond, O'Hara, and Hinckley. About 10 employees aired their grievances about James, which essentially boiled down to him being a tough boss to work for. At the end of this 6-hour struggle session, Tiermond and fellow board member John Garvey put him on leave and stripped him of all authority. It was literally a Stalin-esque kangaroo court. The thing that is so very profound to me is that no one seems to grasp. John Garvey and the rest of the board did nothing to stop it. Matt Tiermond had it all scripted, all 6 effing hours. This comes in the immediate aftermath of Project Veritas' greatest moment ever, exposing corruption at Pfizer, which my source thought was extremely suspicious timing. You boot the founder right after your biggest win of all time? Veritas must explain the situation. My source believes that with enough public support, James could win back support of the 501c4 board. So please retweet and your voice. My understanding is that the individuals who signed this letter were hoping to oust James O'Keefe, but it's backfiring because this stuff wasn't supposed to come out. Somebody leaked it to the press, and here we go. And there are people within Project Veritas who are rejecting what they view as lies and manipulations. All I can say is the sources that I've spoken with, the letter that I've received, and my understanding of these conversations, I've spoken with several people. They believe, based on their understanding of these events and the things they've learned, there's an attempt to damage Project Veritas. These accusations are exaggerations to an extreme degree, falsely framed to make James seem like a tyrant, when at the very worst case, he's just a tough boss. I think the most revealing fact here is that the letter actually says, and I know I'm stressing this again, that there are people who did not witness this nor experience it who signed the letter. How could it then be that you ousted James O'Keefe? What does it mean? Does it mean one person had a gripe with James, so everyone else signed on to it? No, they think they are Project Veritas. Project Veritas is founded and led by James O'Keefe. He is Project Veritas. Without him, you have nothing. Now, don't get me wrong, James needs you too. Project Veritas relies on its journalists, its legal capabilities, its donors. But with no James, do you really believe anyone's going to stand behind Project Veritas? It's not going to happen. I won't. Who are they going to have come out and lead and be the face of the organization? Sorry, I won't. But at the same time, I do understand the importance of the organization. They've released this statement, which I did read. There are 65 plus employees at Project Veritas dedicated to continuing the mission to expose corruption, dishonesty, waste, fraud, and other misconduct. We can see the response. Cat Turd says, huge mistake. Lori Mills, big mistake. The people know who is Project Veritas, kind of like when the Apple board removed Steve Jobs. Hope you thought this through. It's a tremendous mistake. James O'Keefe has worked very, very hard. I've communicated with him. You can see trending right now, he is Project Veritas. Also trending was James O'Keefe is Project Veritas. You know, let me speak to my bias on this one and why, outside of all the political conflict, I don't believe it. I've personally experienced disgruntled employees who've lied about me. Oh, there's so many stories to tell. I've been personally threatened with extortion. I probably shouldn't say too much, but I'm going to. Man, I just love spilling the beans, don't I? I have been threatened with criminal activities, extortion, lies, smears. I've had former employees make up fake stories about me to the press. Yet for some reason, people seem to like working here. And that's why I don't believe this. Here's what I think is more likely. James O'Keefe calls out what he would view as malfeasance or inappropriate behavior. James O'Keefe may be a tough boss to work for. I can accept that. Why not? But I don't even know if that's true. An employee who believes that they are Project Veritas and then wants to implement certain plans or do certain things is then told no. So what do? They go around generating grievances. I've seen this at various nonprofits, and this is the problem with working for a nonprofit that has a board that can remove you. I worked for nonprofits that would fire every single person in the office. I don't know what the legality is, but here's what would happen. An employee would get disgruntled, demoralized, like morale, not, morals. And then they would go to another employee and say, aren't you mad? Aren't you mad? And this negativity mind virus spreads. Management at multiple nonprofits told me this. You must purge the entire office because the demoralization spreads to every single person. And I said, that's insane. How about you just reboost morale? And they say, because it's too difficult. One person gets angry. Maybe they did something wrong. Maybe they committed a company infraction and got written up. Now they're pissed. They go to another employee and say, did you see this? Did you see that? And then what do we get? Employees who have not witnessed nor experienced abuse sign a letter demanding quote unquote accountability. This reeks of fake BS to me. Veritas, you need to get your act together. James O'Keefe is Project Veritas. And if James O'Keefe leaves, he can start any organization and he will get the donors because they believe in him. And you want to come out and say he's a tough boss to work for? Sounds like he's the kind of guy for the job because it's a tough job to have. I'll wrap it up by saying this. We're going to do at timcast.com, we'll have a bigger write-up on this, showing the letter and the accusations made. And that opening statement is the most important in my opinion. But I'm going to stress it again. I'm done fighting. I'm done arguing with people who we should be agreeing with. Maybe we as two different factions on the internet disagree with each other on core issues. Maybe you think I did something wrong and I think you care about things that are not relevant. Let's agree to disagree and then agree that that's not the biggest problem we face. And the biggest problem we face is, for one, Project Veritas falling apart. Two, the woke cult and the things they're doing and the lies they're pushing. And protecting this country. Securing our borders, making this nation better, believing in our core values, calling out the lies from the corporate press. And then after that, once we've secured that and pushed out the insanity, let's start debating amongst ourselves once again. But I'm done with it. That's just me. So I will say it directly and explicitly. I can't speak for anybody else. I can't speak. Look, I can't even speak for the journalists at timcast.com because I do not have editorial control over what they write. They write what they want. But I will say this explicitly to Jeremy Hambley. I apologize. I don't want to fight with you. This story's bigger, and I think you agree. So that's it for me. I'm over it. This story's this is bad. Okay, it's not just this one story. It's seeing those two Republicans get shot and killed. It's seeing the Crowder Daily Wire infighting. Yeah, we're going to lose this one if we keep doing this. So let's not. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast News. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.